Hello and welcome to another dose of Satoshi's Talks. I have with me today another BSV supporter who contacted me through social media, and we are literally just going to be having a chat about how he found the show, who he is, what he thinks of Bitcoin, and everything else like that. So before we get started, experience the best of both worlds today at betbitcoinsv.com, the best casino and sports betting on chain. Have a little flutter in private using the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin. Right, let's cue the music.
Satoshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong, and transactions flying free. Just wait for the Terra node, you'll surely see.
Here we go. Are you there?
I am here.
All right, mate. How is it going?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, mate. It's always good. It's always good to chat to the living men and women behind the pseudonyms on Twitter and getting to know them. As I actually get quite a few other people saying, "Oh, I didn't realize that you interviewed people. Like, I'd love to come on your show and just like chat about what I know, what I found out, how I found your show, and all that kind of stuff." So, for those of you, well, who don't know you or maybe don't know your pseudonym, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure. My name's Alex, and I'm a huge fan of your show, actually. I've watched a lot of your videos and love your sense of humor. You know, the British sense of humor is always, I find it hilarious, you know, with Monty Python and everything. Yeah, I love how you've created your own language related to BSV. With Craig Coin and things like that. Yeah, I find that hilarious, actually. I'm always impatiently waiting your next video. So I'm a data analyst, just a basic data analyst. That's it.
Right. And so tell us your Bitcoin journey, and how did you first get into this and all this kind of stuff?
So I got into this around 2017. So I had a few colleagues at work who were talking to me about Bitcoin.
Right.
And then my brother got into it slightly before me. And I started to look into it. And immediately I saw what kind of technology this is. And I had this view that this is going to disrupt everything,
Wow.
So I immediately got into it, and unfortunately I got in at the wrong time in 2017, so I got a little bit wrecked, but not really, because I didn't put that much money. I'm kind of careful with investments. That's initially how I got into it.
Well, even if you got into it at 2017, I mean, obviously there was the massive crash afterwards, but as the cabal encourage, if you'd hodled, as they say, you'd be looking pretty right now.
Yeah, so a lot prettier right now, definitely. But I quickly transferred my funds to BSV, and I do have other coins, even though I know they're all pretty much shit coins.
Yeah.
But so I did get kind of a second wreckage there. But it's okay. I'm not bitter or anything at all. This has been an incredible journey. And I kind of have this feeling that, BSV eventually is going to be up there, and it's only a matter of time. So I'm just accumulating in the meantime.
Yeah. And so when you said you first discovered the technology and you realized pretty quickly it was going to be a disruptive technology, what do you mean by that? What was your thought process when you sort of realized? Because it took me a while to understand what it was, because I was just like, well, it says Bitcoin a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, so what is money? And then where does it get its value from? What does the network do? What is this thing? I mean it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, even though people would say my understanding is top notch now, it has been a journey, of discovery.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Epic journey,
Epic journey. Yeah, absolutely. So I have a different kind of base of knowledge surrounding this. So I think I'm going to go a little bit further back in my journey. So I've always been interested about the truth and about kind of everything, and I've always wanted to know how can we kind of fix the world. And so my very first kind of journey was into money, right? Because how do you fix the world if you don't understand money? Because everything revolves around money.
Mm.
So the first kind of journey I had was with money, and I stumbled quickly upon the Austrian School of Economics, and sound money with gold and silver and things like that. So that was in 2001, and on top of it, that's when my journey started into kind of the what we call, I don't know, the truther or conspiracy theorist movement,
Yeah.
all those things. So in 2001, when I saw those building collapse, I started researching it, and very quickly I saw, okay, this is kind of the U.S. government doing this. They're trying to bring in tyrannical laws.
Mm.
And so I already had a very good understanding with money, inflation, all those things. So getting back to BSV, when I got to BTC and I saw this immutable ledger, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system where you could not print more Bitcoin, immediately I'm like, this looks like something incredible. Really sound money. On top of it, it can be used over the internet, and it's eliminating the banks. So it just clicked right away almost. Of course, I did a lot of research surrounding BTC, but it was almost immediate.
Oh wow! And so, were you following the protocol right through BTC to BCH to BSV?
Yes, yes.
Oh
So
wow!
when we look at that from that perspective, first you had BTC, and then you had this time point, I think it was in 2017, where there's this huge traffic on BTC and people couldn't get their transactions through.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you had a huge spike in BCH, Bitcoin Cash,
Yeah.
right? So that when I saw that, I'm like, what's going on here? So then I started listening to Roger Ver, and everything he said made sense to me at the time. So from BTC, I quickly got into BCH, and then from there, I think they capped it, the block size, and then kind of shortly after, Craig Wright came into play, and I started listening to him, and I'm like, this guy, there's nobody who knows more about this than him.
Yeah.
So I quickly transferred to BSV. And I kept in touch with BCH and Roger Ver, but quickly Roger Ver I had a kind of a negative feeling about him. I don't know, I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I quickly transferred to Craig. And once I started listening to Craig, I mean, the guy knows everything. He can answer every question. He's come up with things that nobody knew about, kind of like the smart contracts and various other things. So, yeah. It was very direct, like BTC, BCH, BSV.
Yeah, well, do you know, I mean, I did the same thing, but there was still a time, probably early on in 2017, and remember, I think, do you remember the first time you saw Craig? When did he
I
first pop
think
up
it
on your
was a big,
radar?
I think it was a big conference where he came to speak. I don't know if it was. I can't see. It's so long ago that I can't really remember exactly. But there was a whole bunch of kind of specialists speaking, and he came on, and I don't remember exactly the subject, but people were looking at
Oh,
him
that was
like
like
he's crazy.
2015. Was that when he appeared on the screen?
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
think so.
that was actually the future of Bitcoin. Well, I don't know if future, but it was the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, with Bitcoin Bell that had
Okay.
Nick Szabo,
Yeah.
Joseph Van Perling, Trace Mayer, yeah, and other people on it. So that was actually that was 2015.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
probably saw it after. I saw it later on because I didn't see it in 2015. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think Craig probably first popped up on my radar. I would have thought. I think for the majority of people, Craig popped up on their radar at the Future of Bitcoin conference in Arnhem in 2017, when
Okay.
John Matonis introduced him as a Mr. Bitcoin Dundee,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
the the legend from Australia. But even at that time, because I didn't really understand what I was watching, because I
Hmm.
was it was still new to me. I just didn't know what was going on, and there was
Yep.
so much. There were so many different versions and different stories, and some people were just like, oh, there's just another one trying to be
Yeah.
Satoshi and all this kind of stuff. But I'm not one of these people that would just simply discount anyone because somebody told me to.
Right.
I'm always gonna give them the time of day, and everything that Craig said, everything he said, I agreed with. I couldn't fault him on anything. And also, I mean, even if it wasn't necessarily from a fundamental economic perspective back then, because obviously I've got such a deeper, far more deeper understanding of what it is now.
Right.
The fact that it has to have a use case. You have to have a reason to buy it. And
Yeah.
and Craig was always going on about the use of the network, and it took me
Yeah.
a while to amalgamate the two. It's like, oh right, so you buy the coin to use the network. So therefore the scaling of the network is actually really important, and
Right.
the things that you can do on it, because you buy Bitcoin to use the network. Whereas
Yeah.
Roger Ver was just constantly banging on about it. Oh, it's cash, it's cash, it's cash. But unless you've got a reason to buy it, anybody can just make a coin and try and persuade people to use it as a medium of exchange. But where's the value? The value comes from its utility. If something is
Yes.
useful, it's valuable. If something is useless, it's worthless, kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
even though Roger was probably one of the first people that I was drawn to, because he's well spoken, he's passionate. He goes on about libertarianism and freedom, and the tyrannical government and all this kind of stuff, which I do. I mean, I wasn't so much of a conspiracy theorist back then as I am now. Obviously,
Yeah.
now I'm a massive one.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
So
too.
listening to Roger was it drew me to him. Like attracted me to him. But there were just a few fundamental questions that I actually had for him, and I was just like, I don't know if this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Like he feels whenever you listen to him, it sounds like he's talking from the heart, but the head and the heart aren't in sync. You know,
Yes. Yes,
and
I agree.
yeah, and I was just like, this guy is missing something. Can't quite put my finger on it. Obviously now I can, because he doesn't have a clue what. He doesn't really have a clue about the fundamental. He doesn't really have a clue what Bitcoin's for. You know.
Yeah, I would say too, like I agree with you. He either doesn't have a clue or it's on purpose, right? He knows and he's still in charge of his own crypto and he doesn't want to kind of give truth any power, right?
Yeah. I kind of get the feeling that what he's trying to do is, because he's so impassioned, he's actually trying to fight them and go up against them. Whereas Craig's point of view was just like, actually, if you give anybody a tool for criminality, all that's going to do is benefit the biggest criminals, because they will
Yes.
they will take control of it. And that's
Yeah.
what Roger was trying to say. Roger was trying to say, like, oh, we've created this. We're going to use this one. We need something that's anonymous so that we can get back at the government and the bad guys. And I'm just like, they will just take it off you. They will just take it
Yeah.
off you, and they will shut it down. And then also, I think one of the most reckless things I heard him say was that, he said the thing about Bitcoin is that they can't shut it down. If
Yeah.
they could have shut it down, they would have shut it down already. I was like, no. If they really wanted to shut it down, they would shut it down.
I
No
mean,
questions
it's
asked.
shut down right now, isn't it? Isn't it like the original idea of Bitcoin is kind of totally almost totally shut down. They took BTC, they stole it, they destroyed the protocol, right? It's essentially almost shut down. So,
Well, I meant in terms of like literally taking it offline.
oh, okay,
You
yeah.
know.
I mean, yeah, they could definitely shut it down. It's just a matter of attacking the. You could attack multiple buildings that have,
Yeah.
or you could attack the mining. There's various ways, right?
Yeah. All you got to do is literally all you got to do is shut down all the miners simultaneously. And
Yes.
Roger was going, "Oh, it's above the law. You can't do this. You can't do that." And I was just like, "Mate, you just give them an excuse, and they will do it."
Yes.
That's
I
why
agree.
we cannot give them the excuse. The reason they haven't challenged Bitcoin in the courts is because they don't have anything to challenge it on.
Yeah.
It doesn't break any laws, and if they did try to challenge it, the truth would come out, and then the benefits would come out. It's like, oh right, that's what this is actually for.
Yes.
This is how it really works, and that's what they don't want. So the reason they've got BTC and BCH and all these other shitcoins there is because they're just simply a distraction. They're using these shitcoins as a distraction to keep people distracted away from Bitcoin, which is BSV. And if Roger thinks that the reason they can't shut it down is because it's above the law, I was just like, mate, that is a dangerous position to be coming from, because if you've got anything invested in that thing and you think that it's safe because it's above the law, there is a risk that it could go to zero the next day when law enforcement pounces on it. If it breaks the law. So why would you invest heavily in something that is so massively risky?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, Craig Wright explains that extremely well. And he explains how it was never meant to be, outside the law or kind of anti-government.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
meant to work into government and to better government.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a better monetary system where we eliminate kind of that third person with low fees. And he talks about, the third world as well. If you take someone in Africa, they'll be able to kind of sell their services around the world
Yep.
at 1,000th of a cent. Whereas you take BTC, I mean, no poor person can use BTC because they wouldn't have enough to hodl anyways. The fees, when we're talking about Africa or other third world areas, continents or nations, they get paid. It's like dollars a day, or not even. Like it can be like, I don't know if it's $20 a week or even less than
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those fees are prohibitive to begin with. Whereas with an electronic cash system that scales with very tiny fees, like we have now with BSV already, with Terranode and all those things, you can have this worldwide system, and it's an immutable ledger too. So it immediately reduces corruption by 99%, right?
Yeah, yeah, massively.
Massively. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and another thing I quite liked about what Craig was saying was that he wanted, what he wants to do eventually. His aim is to open up Africa so that
Yeah.
Africa can actually benefit from the resources that it has. And thinking about it, what's happening in Africa at the moment is that they are being exploited. They're being exploited by huge corporations that basically have a monopoly on the mineral wealth in Africa by keeping all by keeping all the people who live there extremely poor and reliant on them, on a sort of salaried basis, which means we only get to benefit from those natural resources in Africa through buying them at inflated prices, through the corporations. Whereas what Craig's, I think what he was suggesting was that Africa, if the Africans were able to benefit from the sale of their resources themselves, in other words, not beholden to giant corporations, if they can actually sell those minerals themselves, they themselves personally would benefit from the sale and distribution of the resources, and the rest of the world would benefit from access to those resources granted to them by the people who were living there, and again, not beholden to these huge corporations that are exploiting the Africans and making huge profits, and basically being gatekeepers to the resources for the rest of the world.
Yeah, 100%. On top of that, you would have kind of, anywhere in the world, you have some money and you want to invest in Africa, you can easily send that. You don't have to go through the banks anymore. We're going to take 10 to 20% of your funds. You can send that money immediately over to Africa. let's say you see, I don't know, a little association taking care of people there. You can send them money instantly, low fees, and they can offer you services. So you have going to have this influx of funds that comes in, and then you have all this kind of manpower waiting to be used, and they can do whatever you want. I mean, if someone over there is trilingual and you need a translation, boom, send your little kind of contract, tell them to do the translation, and you were going to have all these all these resources, manpower on top of what you just mentioned. You know, the natural resources that they have,
Yeah.
and you're creating a whole new economy, really.
Yeah, yeah. Mike, you're basically creating an economy of micro businesses that will then
Exactly.
probably blossom into, sort of relatively small to medium sized enterprises. Because if you're paying out those people who are working for you in Bitcoin, and the value of Bitcoin is increasing, then those people with with that extra value will then probably maybe start their own little mining operation. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because they've got access to the resources, so they're now no longer beholden to being paid, by this corporation who's exploiting them. Yeah, they're just like, oh, actually, well, yeah, I know where this little pool of minerals are, just round the corner from where my village is, and it's too small for the large corporations to actually want to pay any attention to it, but I can actually exploit that myself. And
Yeah.
I will go down there, put up a little website. I'll start, selling the minerals, from my little village, and again, cut out the middlemen. And there'll be loads of individuals doing that. So and they will be competing against the prices that these large corporations are selling it at. So therefore, you get the whole world benefiting from reduced cost of resources, but then you also get the individuals of the African nations benefiting from their own initiative, from their own entrepreneurship,
Yeah, and
which is
it's going to
massive.
be huge. It's going to be huge because, I mean, you're so good at kind of explaining it into simple terms, and that's one of the reasons, I watch your show.
Oh, cheers, man.
Um, we're definitely eliminating so many middlemen that have been leeches
Yeah,
on
yeah,
society. All these corporations that are amassing millions, billions of dollars, okay, and they're concentrating that capital into the hands of these wealthy leeches,
mm,
banks, corporations, you name it. They're going to be eliminated, and all that money ends up getting redistributed to the people that it should be.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the actual workers, and you know where do you get the most growth? It's when you support your small and medium-sized businesses. And
yep,
so what it ends up doing is, it helps in entrepreneurship.
mm,
Essentially, everybody can become an entrepreneur, right? And
yeah,
at
yeah,
their own level. And we're eliminating these huge corporations. We don't need them. They've been a leech on society.
mm,
They're corrupting our governments.
yeah, yeah,
It's terrible. Like the amount of poverty we can eliminate just through this system.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
so much. I'm so positive about this, and I can see the ramifications, especially for the third world countries. It's going to put them on a level playing field.
Yeah, yeah. The whole world is going to benefit from economic competition,
Absolutely.
which the increase in value in Bitcoin brings from one, and also, I mean, the amount of efficiency that it's going to bring in terms of supply chain management is huge, because
Yeah.
they're,
Yeah.
like you said, just eradicate the middlemen that are holding up the flow of the stock, probably adding excessive weight along the journey to it, inflating prices because they've got a monopoly on the distribution. There's
Yeah.
so much stuff, but the only thing that is, I mean, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. There was a post I reported on the other day where somebody said, you know, buying Bitcoin or buying BTC is risky because the price is constantly being pumped and dumped. But then buying BSV is risky because you somehow think you can beat the cabal, And it's just like,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that we're thinking about it that way. That is pretty insane.
It is. It is. In the long term, though, you know, let's
Well,
say
do
BSV
we
gets
have a long
recognized.
term?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. That's another
Yeah.
question, right? Are we
Yeah.
going to World War III, right?
Yeah.
But say we avoid that through Trump and whatnot,
Mm.
and we go back to some more sanity as opposed to, these absolute crooks that we have in power around the world. And let's say in the long run, people recognize BSV. Let's say, Craig Wright defeats these fools in court finally.
Mm.
Um, what ends up happening is you're going to have so many people using the best network in the world, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the best form of electronic cash in the world. Nothing comes close. Nobody scales, to that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody scales to that level with such tiny amount of fees.
Mm.
And, of course, we have the electronic signatures, which are, kind of super important, or one of the most important points of it.
Mm.
In the long run, what's going to happen is going to be used by billions of people, and the price is going to stabilize. So yes, I mean, the price might slowly continue to go up with usage. However, it's going to stabilize eventually, because it's going to end up being kind of like the US dollar without the inflation. So eventually
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
to have a stable price, I believe, in the long run. And so, because economies, that's one thing with money. You need a state for it to be a good form of money. It needs to be more stable, but that's going to be in the long run. I'm pretty confident about that.
And obviously, I do quite enjoy speculating. What's your
Yes.
what is your speculative predictions on how things might might play out?
Yeah, I mean, and that was one of my questions for you, actually. I know you talk about it in your shows, but I mean, everything's going to depend on the U.S. Election. I know Trump won,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not over yet, right? You had Democrats talking about not certifying the election, and in my opinion, they let him get in, they're done.
Mm.
And it's not just them; it's a lot of people around the world. So I think we're in for a next 6 months to maybe even a year of absolute chaos, and it's going to be a bumpy ride. But I'm very positive. I think we are winning, and we're gonna kind of go through that shaky time, and eventually we're gonna get into a new system, new money, new everything. And I think that's when BSV is going to take off, because I also see the dollar crashing, and I don't see BSV. I mean, it's possible, but I don't see it taking off until the dollar and some of these systems fall, like Tether, right? Like,
Oh
because
yeah.
they can just pump the price almost forever. I mean, unless something major happens, they're just going to keep controlling the price of BTC. They're going to short BSV. So, I mean, to me, this is a medium to long term investment. But I mean, it could happen quickly. Things can happen quickly. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how I see things playing out kind of at a higher level. What's going to be the trigger event for BSV to take off? I can see a few. Tether gets finally investigated, taken down. U.S. dollar crashes. Um, Maybe well, obviously Judge Meller, who's either he's crooked or he's just
No,
threatened.
mate,
They threaten
he's
his
crooked.
family or whatever.
He's crooked, mate.
I think
He
he's crooked
knows.
too. I think he's crooked too, but I always give the benefit of the doubt. These people are so powerful. They
Mm.
own so many judges. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw what happened in the U.S., and it happens in every country. So, but he's most likely crooked. I agree. Um, but I see it going further, and eventually, I don't understand. Maybe you can tell me, how can someone who's kind of studied this, who's followed the court cases, how can you not see through the corruption, the lies? I mean, they pretty much had Copa write his report for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your opinion? Like, how can people still, like anybody with, a certain amount of analytical skills, how can you not kind of start to see through this BS?
Well, it's the number of people who are willfully corrupt,
Right,
that are against it.
right.
And what fascinates me is the people who are just on their journey of waking up, whatever you
Right.
want to call it. There was
Yep.
they're saying, oh, there's so much more of us than them. There's just a handful of them and all that. But all you've got to do is listen to a Major General Smedley Darlington Butler's speech in 1934, when he said, there were 500,000 men ready to take over the functions of government. And that was back in 1934. They literally had a well-oiled machine of 500,000, and that's just the ones ready to take over the functions of government, let alone the ones that are in society, that are running all the large corporations, that are heading the media, that own the hedge funds, the insurance companies, the banks. I mean, literally, we are in worst case scenario. I mean, literally, when my journey of waking up really only started in 2017, when they corrupted BTC, because I was so excited, because I knew, just from being a small business owner, having just thought about things all the time, and it's just like, oh my god, the issue is the medium of exchange that we're using. It's toxic. Small businesses don't stand a chance, and I was always in support of small businesses, but I was at a loss. I was just like, oh my goodness me, we are heading to some really, really bad times. The only solace I could hope for is that I'm not going to be around when that happens, because it might take another few hundred years or whatever. But when they corrupted BTC, because I was just like, oh my goodness me, this thing could potentially solve all the world's problems, because all the world's problems stem from economic problems. And again, all legal and political influence stem from economic power. And when it was corrupted, I was just like, oh my god, what if? What if there is a nefarious element that has got in control of the banking system? What damage would they have already caused, and what might their final end goal be? And when you start thinking about those questions, and you start looking out for things, suddenly you start to see them. Things that you were completely oblivious to before now suddenly kind of like jump off the page, as it were, and it's just like, oh my god, surely this, But I mean, from my understanding of economics, I was literally just like, holy crap, this lot, they own the military, which means they know all the generals, which means they control the generals. They know all the police constables, they own the police force, they own all the judges, they own the hospitals. I was just like, this could be really bad. I just hoped that it wasn't, but when I looked into it, it was even worse than I could ever have imagined. Oh,
yeah. It's gross. It's disgusting, but it's reality, and people can't accept that. Like, that's one of the reasons why I think people can't wake up. Is it's not a lack of intelligence. I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not a lack of intelligence. It's the inability to accept the darkness of reality. It's kind of a little surreal talking to you, because I listen to your videos and I'm like, I agree with this guy like to 99%. And it's like you talk about stuff, and then I start kind of talking about Trump and things, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, like, we're on the same page virtually to 99%. So no, it's I find it awesome. It's just again, I say it's a little bit surreal, but yeah, going back to the corruption, as you said, it's generals, and here's the thing: it's not all of them, but it's enough, right? It's not all the generals, but it's a huge portion of them. It's not all the politicians, but for politicians, I think it's a good 90 to 95%.
Yeah.
Politicians, police, they're infiltrated everywhere. Church leaders, you name it, whatever you want. They control everything. But we can change it, because if you get the masses behind this, and that's kind of where we're going, and that's what the kind of, if you want to say, people getting awake or whatever you want to call it, they're the masses, and our numbers are increasing. It's hard to really put a finger on what the exact percentage is, but it's increasing. I think it's accelerating. And I think if you look at just the US scene, the things that are happening, even some of the staunchest normies, they're like, what's going on? Like, this is getting crazy. Like, they're going almost to a point of brain freeze, because it just won't compute anymore, Oh man, it's frustrating though. especially the BSV, when you know in your heart and with all of your logical abilities that this thing is more it's more for me more disruptive than the internet,
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
we're talking about eliminating um, virtually the majority of corruption,
Mm.
having a trail of all the kind of interactions and of money, basically all the money exchanges that anybody can audit.
Yeah,
People don't understand that, right? You
yeah,
you have somebody who goes to buy weapons in another country, there's a trace of it.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
anybody can look at that. So you no longer need um, kind of all these experts. You have the world that can just look into things, and they do. Look, I mean, look at this, what you call the truth movement, I guess,
mm.
truther movement.
Yeah,
They put out information, and then the movement takes it and they start analyzing it, and then boom, pop up all these counter arguments, and more people are looking at that, and they're like, okay, I know this is bullshit, you know. So I think we're not that far away, but it's going to take some time.
yeah. Well, you know what they say. What things often take longer than you think, but happen faster than you expect. You
Yes,
know,
yes,
like when if you've been waiting for something to suddenly turn, and then it's a bit like waiting for a bus, and then three come along at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
that
Yeah, that's a
old
good
that old
metaphor.
chestnut.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So
No, I agree.
what was the overall kind of? I mean, could you gauge what the general nation was like when Trump got in? I mean, for me, it was a
Okay,
huge well, actually. I actually didn't believe he was going to do it because I was just like, they're going to rig it again. They're going to do something to the voting machines like they did last time.
yeah,
You've seen people putting videos out on social media saying, "Look, I can't even vote for Trump." You know,
yeah.
the machine, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like they're just going to railroad him again. You know, and so
And if
for him to win was just, I was just like, "Oh, this is fantastic."
Yeah, so I think they tried to cheat, but it was too big to steal. If you notice, the states that Kamala won, they're all states with no voter ID.
Really? No
So yeah,
way.
so well, the vast majority of them. I mean, he won the 7 swing states, or how many ever swing states there are.
Mm,
But if you notice the states that you won, it's the ones with no voter ID.
no
So
way.
I think it was too big to steal. Funny enough, when Trump came in around before like 2016, I mean, I already knew about like the deep state and all those things. So I'm like, this is just another controlled opposition. So I
Yeah,
actually thought he was controlled opposition.
yeah.
But when I started to kind of believe in him or hope that he would do something was when he started attacking the media head on, like all
Mm,
fake news, like, and that was early on. So I quickly switched. I still wasn't sure, but as time went on and I saw that his own party was attacking him, the Democrats were attacking him, the media, they got all the woke machine. I mean, it was clear to me that he's trying to do something. And same as you for this most recent election, I thought that maybe they would kind of steal it again, but that he would do something like he would bring in the military or I don't know, do something about it. But yeah, it was a pleasant surprise to see him win. But I really believe the win was even bigger than that. I
oh
mean,
yeah, that's what I thought. I
it's
think
yeah.
with the amount of skullduggery behind the scenes for him to have won that big, the margin must have been absolutely massive.
I mean, I think it's possible he won all of the states. If you look at the map and you compare the counties,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like a fully. I think it was Elon Musk who posted something like that.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, you like it's red, and then you look at the blue version. There's a few spots, so it kind of shows you too, like how many people are either fed up or awake,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we have tremendous momentum. So, but I also think it's going to get, as I said earlier, really bumpy and crazy because they cannot let him take the presidency.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
already done so much damage. Look at the damage he's done to mainstream media. I think CNN lost 85 to 90% of their viewership or something like that.
Wow,
So,
wow.
yeah. So, I mean, we have tremendous kind of momentum. And on this point, I wanted to ask you, what do you think? Do you have any theories about Trump and what his knowledge is about Bitcoin and like BSV? There's all these theories floating around that, well, he and the military, or even just his close surroundings, they know BSV is actually Bitcoin, but they're kind of just playing politics right now. What do you think about all that stuff?
Well, what actually shocked me, and I still go on about this, is the fact that, I think it is probably only the deep state that actually can explain the difference between currency and money. And
Yeah,
if you don't know the difference between currency and money, you can't differentiate between a digital security and a digital commodity.
yeah,
And then not only
yeah.
that, in order to actually comprehend a digital commodity, the reason people can't comprehend why Bitcoin is a commodity is because they don't understand the paradox of the centralized starting point. That's why all these economists are just like, no, they just simply dismiss it out of hand. It's a security, somebody started it. But what they
Hmm.
don't realize is that obviously, Craig added commonality to the starting point by giving everybody a common, equal, and reasonable opportunity to start the network themselves by releasing the white paper.
Right.
And then the network had to go through this neutral organic growth phase. So, does Trump or his advisors know that? I mean, I don't think the good guys know that Bitcoin is BSV yet. The bad guys certainly do, absolutely do. That's why they can't
No, for
allow it.
sure.
But the thing is, though, like Craig has said, utility will win through at the end of the day. And
Right.
you know how he said, November the 9th, 2008, said it is strictly necessary that the longest chain is always considered the most valid one. Well, the reason being is that the longest chain is going to be the most neutral and the one that's the most efficient in speed, cost, and scale. And
Hmm.
that is the one that everybody is going to use. And the one that everyone's going to use is the one that everybody has got access to and the one where their digital data is safe. Whereas you had Vitalik already approaching the developers at Blockstream, asking them if he could build Ethereum on top of BTC. So again, it's already permissioned. And
Oh, I didn't know about that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
That's why Ethereum came about. Because
Hmm.
Vitalik approached them and said, "Look, can I build?" Because he wanted smart contracts,
Hmm.
on chain, and he had to approach them. Look, because because the scale was so small at 1 megabyte, he was just like, "Well, look, if you just kind of like increase it just a little bit, we can run smart contracts on this thing." And they were just like, "Nope." So it's just like, "Fine, I'm gonna create my own chain."
Yeah.
And
It's funny though when you think about it, because he said BSV was an absolute scam, right?
yeah, yeah. Um,
That's,
I don't quite know what. Yeah, but I mean, he's young. I mean, he's really
yeah.
young, really young. I mean, he might be a genius, but I mean, this is what kind of gets me about anybody who thinks that Peter Todd, could potentially be Satoshi Nakamoto, because the maturity and the level of understanding that you have to have in terms of legality, which is the need for digital signatures, and also the fundamental understanding of economics, of what money actually is, of how you commoditize data. I mean, there is just no way. There is no way anyone without the level of maturity that only comes with experience could create this thing. And I mean, hats off to Craig. I mean, he put this thing out when he was the tender age of 39. I mean, even that blows my mind that Craig was able to do that. But you're trying to tell me that this Peter Todd, who would have been in his like mid-20s or early 20s, when Bitcoin first came out, was the guy who created it? No chance,
No
no
chance.
chance. I mean, even Craig, being the savant that he is, was 39, because
Yeah.
you needed those 2 decades of being in. And not only that, I remember, I mean, in your 20s, people are going out partying and getting drunk and all this kind of stuff. You don't actually learn all that much in your younger years because you're just developing emotionally. And then you've got your 30s to go through, and you've got to make a living for yourself and get a house and do all the stuff. You don't there isn't actually a lot of time to get all this knowledge and learning that is required. You really, really need to be someone exceptional. And like I said,
Yeah.
even somebody with the exceptional skills that Craig has got, it still took him until he was 39.
Yeah.
And even then he was the already well known as a sort of cybersecurity expert and an auditor for De Morgan. You know, I think
Right.
was it De Morgan? I can't remember. What was
I can't remember.
the accounting firm BDO? Yeah,
BDO. Okay.
that he was an auditor for, and it was the heads of those auditing firms, because BDO I think is the equivalent to sort of, you know, KPMG and PwC over here. And the head of BDO, which was, you know, Stephen Matthews at the time, even he recognised Craig's brilliance, and everybody that worked with Craig admired his skill, and just for being brilliant at what he did. You know, like designing the securities for the Vodafone network and all this kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Craig's level of understanding is just, you know, unmatched by anyone else that I could be able to
Close.
essentially find.
And yeah, I agree with you. It takes an extraordinary amount of knowledge, but it's not only the knowledge, it takes a brilliant mind. And I don't think a regular mind could do this. Like, I have a friend actually who also has Asperger's syndrome. I think he measured at 189 or 190 or something on the IQ scale. He's extremely brilliant. And when I look at Craig, I'm like, they're very similar. These are people who have brilliant minds. You know, often it's going to take, you know, maybe a mild form of autism, which Craig has. And when I started listening to Craig, he very quickly touched on subjects where, you know, I've studied many different types of subjects, but I've studied economics a lot on my own. And when he started to talk about Adam Smith and various economic principles, I was like, okay, this guy obviously knows economics. He knows monetary theory.
Yep.
He's brilliant. He has a brilliant mind in mathematics. He knows some coding. He knows all these. He's an expert in all these various fields. I mean, he's even what is it, a pastor or something like that?
Yeah,
so he
yeah,
knows
yeah.
about
Yeah.
religion too. So he obviously knows about ethics.
Yep.
So you cannot just be a coder to do this. You would have had to know about economics, monetary theory, mathematics, computer programming, ethics, and all these various things. And you would have had to have studied the history of, you know, electronic cash, or I guess it was e-cash in the beginning, and all these things. So it takes the knowledge, which definitely, it's not going to be at 20 years old. That's ridiculous. It's just anybody who says that, I don't take you serious anymore. It's ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous as the most recent press conference with that guy who was saying he's Satoshi, the Indian.
Stephen
I mean,
Moeller,
come on.
yeah.
Oh my! How ridiculous was that? And they had this huge press conference. Of course, it's another form of distraction. You know, you mentioned it earlier. It takes a brilliant mind and years of dedication and knowledge. So I'm on the same point. Sorry, on the same kind of wavelength there.
Yeah, and commitment as well. Yeah, I mean,
Commitment.
this is. I mean, you know, when Craig wrote, the project is in good hands with Gavin and everyone. You know, I've moved on to other things. You know, that other things, you know, was developing intellectual property and blockchain IP, and registering these patents. Yeah, that's what he was doing, sort of. So I mean, this whole thing. I mean, even Craig admitted it's somewhat divine. You know.
Yes.
I mean, for him to have been born when he was born, and to have the tenacity and the inclination, and the skill and the mindset, to be able to put all this together is just mind blowing. Mind blowing. You know, but I mean, one of the reasons I think I was probably able to figure out what he'd done is because, again, I'm sure one of my best mates is on the spectrum, because him and Craig are very, very similar, and I know how
that's funny.
And and I know how my mate thinks, which is staggering. And like literally I mean, he overthinks things by magnitudes that aren't necessarily necessary.
Yes.
But he just can't not overthink absolutely everything and work everything out, to precision. And that's
Yeah.
why I was just like, right, nothing is left to chance here. So anything that is, left to chance, the probability will have been worked out on. And that's when I sort of recognized the, January 3rd to 1st of January 2009 being effectively like 11 years. So it's like 10 years plus another one for a little bit extra. You're working out the probability of that, the fact that it's the neutral organic growth that they can't replicate, all this kind of stuff. And again, when you're trying to figure out who Satoshi Nakamoto is, Craig is just at that right age. He ticks all the boxes of somebody who could have potentially created this. But then obviously you've got the Tulip Trust document, written by Dave Kleiman, saying, back in 2011, saying I've received 1,100,111 Bitcoin from Craig Wright. I mean, who was talking about that amount of Bitcoin in 2011?
Yeah. No, but yeah, I mean, there's so much evidence. I don't really look at the evidence anymore, but things keep popping up. Even on your show, you have amazing information coming out. So I'm convinced. I mean, I'm willing to listen because, like you said, I always keep an open mind and I listen to people. I give them benefit of the doubt. But there's so much evidence at this point. If you've done your research and you're not somebody who like just accepts something and then refuses to change your mind, you cannot not see that it's Craig. But you mentioned something that this is divine. So I was going to throw you a curveball, and if it's not something that you're interested on your show, you can just kind of change the subject. But what do you think? Like, have you read the Bible at all? Because in the Bible it talks about at the end of times, there's going to be a system where you cannot spend or buy things without that system, right? And so, yeah, the mark of the beast. So I think that this system is a perfect system as long as you have good people in control. But I think eventually they'll kind of change it in a way. Because how can you have a system like that? Well, we have the technology now. BSV can be that system. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be BSV. I think we're going to have a period of growth and like an incredible period. But I think eventually they're going to use a similar system. Only what they do is they attach kind of like a microchip. And then that's how they would have. Because if you microchip everybody, you would need the blockchain that scales infinitely to be able to link that to the chip. So I don't think BSV is the system, but the chip would be, and then they would attach it to like a similar blockchain. Any thoughts on that?
Actually, yeah, funnily enough, I mean, yeah, this is going like a little bit deep, and again, it's just an opinion.
Yeah.
But so again, I mean, they tried to bring in I mean, literally, it's nuts. If you read in the Book of Revelation, it's just like bloody hell. What chapter are we on now?
Exactly.
We've got the trumpets being blown, and we've got the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and all this, the mark of the beast, so people won't be able to buy or sell, no jab, no job, and all this kind of stuff. But there is a concept, and again, it's I mean, I haven't got time to just marvel at, whoa, this is crazy. It's just like, right, we just need to get on with this. So they say in the Bible that the third temple of Solomon the construction of Solomon's third temple will only start when the second coming of Christ has happened. When he's here. So well, they've already started construction on this third temple. So where is Jesus? Where is he? And the system that Craig has created, and also the way Craig is, very much fits the philosophy of the returning of the Christ consciousness. Right. That's actually a thing. And I mean, who better to be, to sort of be that individual than, somebody who's on the spectrum that can't lie, that's very principled and not emotional,
Hmm.
And has the solution to all the problems, which is the financial system. So it's
Hmm.
literally you've got the bad guys bringing in they're literally their most satanic evil agenda through the back door of a health emergency, the World Health Organization. And you've got this maybe potential returning of the Christ consciousness that is countering that through an alternative financial system to the one that we're using, a true one. But
Right.
not only a true one, creating a money that is backed by immutability, and it's the truth that always comes first. So you've actually got a
Yeah.
system where the truth can now no longer be cracked, hacked, altered, changed, or deleted, which means it can't be disputed. And
Yeah.
the truth is effectively secured by the money. So you buy
Yeah.
the money in order to make sure that your data can't be deleted and therefore can't be subverted. I mean, sometimes I have to pinch myself to think to myself, am I actually even just talking to you now? I'm thinking, did I actually really just say that? Are we actually really in this situation? This is
Yeah.
insane. But
Don't worry, you're not the
here we
only one.
are. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
No. No, that's great. Thanks a lot for that. That's great. It gives me more things to research. That's awesome. But getting back to more normal stuff.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah, it's this system, no doubt, um, is the greatest invention. I mean, since the internet, which was a
yeah,
huge
yeah.
leap, kind of. But this thing is going to revolutionize everything. It's going to change how everything works. It's the most sound form of money you could possibly have, and I think it's going to be, if we go through this bumpy ride, and this is going to be implemented, and we're going to have a huge kind of um, phase of prosperity and truth and sound money, and I that's what I think about BSV. But I think we're still in the middle of the battle, and they're to me the best information you can get aside from Craig Wright. There's a Reddit channel. I think it's Bitcoin Cash SV or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
right. Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And there's you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
literally, I listen to your videos and I'm like, okay, when's the next one coming out? Like, what's taking so long? Like, I need my fix, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I love your stuff. I can talk about this for hours. So whenever you want to talk and you need some layman on this, I'm
Oh,
here.
awesome. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would be, mate. That would be brilliant. I mean, what I would like to do is, maybe try and replicate something like. I mean, do you remember the Bitcoin SV channel when that was out?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, honestly, like that channel literally just blew up. What we were getting like
Hmm.
3,000 live viewers. At some
Yeah.
point, and even now, I was speaking to somebody the other day who's not a big developer, and he's just like, "Mate, what happened to the show? I used to love it." And I was just like,
Yeah.
"Mate, you're not the only one. I love being on it. Even now, it's like the best times I've ever had."
Hmm.
In Bitcoin, because it was just so much fun on this being on this journey of discovery, and like sharing it sharing it with the other lads, and just like basically just having the crack. It was so much fun. And
Yeah.
people have said, look, can that be replicated again? I mean, sort of like, unfortunately, I mean, it was almost like a boy band, really. The three of us, it wouldn't really work again. But I mean, yeah, trying to replicate something like that would be absolutely awesome. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you want to
No.
sort of like try a few shows and all that, we'd more than happy to try it. It'd be
Oh
great fun.
yeah, yeah. I'm here whenever you need me. I there's so much to talk about too because it relates to everything. Because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking about a money system. You're I mean we're talking. It relates, of course, to the truther movement or whatever people want to call it, Great Awakening or whatever.
mm,
Um, we're in the middle of the fight,
yeah, yeah,
and I mean we saw the courts are corrupt,
yeah,
but despite everything that happened, all the attacks, the courts, the social engineering, despite everything, the project is pushing forward. It's strong, and it's proven it's strong despite all the attacks. Now they have Terranode coming out. I mean, the thing scales. We can beat Visa, MasterCard.
yeah, yeah.
Um, We can create currencies for the world if they want to. People are going to be able to, kind of monetize their own work and eliminate middlemen as this develops. I'm confident that your show is going to blow up with time, and
I think
I
they'll
can't
probably
wait.
take it off air.
Yeah.
They'll probably delete my channel again.
Well, that's another question, and if you don't want to answer it, you tell me. But have you gotten any threats at all?
Nah. I mean, I just literally
No.
anybody who says anything negative, I just block. Literally,
Okay.
I've got no time for it.
Good.
And like, usually, if somebody is gonna threaten you or anything like that, they normally kind of like build up to it because they have to introduce themselves
Right.
first, and then they have to develop an issue with you, and then it's after that they'll kind of like issue the threat. Whereas literally, the moment I get an inkling of anybody being negative or like even if somebody just doesn't get it, I'm just like, right, block, see you later.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no time even for them to build something
Yeah,
kind of
nothing. No,
yeah.
I've got no
Okay.
time for it, mate. No time for
Okay.
it
Well,
at all.
thank God for that, because like, I mean, we've seen how they attack literally everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that. And also for me, like, I'm thinking of getting into the BSV space. I think I've mentioned this offline with you. Like, I don't know which direction. I mean, I speak French.
Oh,
I'm fully bilingual, so
yeah, yeah.
uh, like, I wanted to maybe create a channel, but I don't see what I could do, any better or differently than you are doing. So in my mind, I'm like, well, why don't I go towards the French market? Because I don't know any BSVers on the French market in the YouTube channel. So I could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I want to push this forward because I believe this is one of our best hopes for having a sound economy, is having
Yeah, yeah.
sound money.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially, now that we have everything's electronic now. So we need a form of money on the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, I'm thinking getting into the space, and I wanted to ask you if you had any advice, or if you have things that I should read to better my understanding. So one example is, like, you talk about SegWit, right?
Hmm.
And like, I understand the principles that BTC no longer has electronic signatures, but I'm someone who likes to understand the intricacies of things. So
Hmm.
do you have any things you recommend to read on, like, SegWit?
Well, I mean, this is the ridiculous situation that we're in. Like, literally, the only things I'd recommend reading are the articles that I've written myself. you know,
Okay, great. No,
I've,
that's fine.
if you go onto my Medium site,
Hmm.
and what's kind of
Hmm.
interesting is that even I go back and read the articles myself, you can see my own journey developing. Like
Hmm.
when I first wrote that article, the paradox of the centralized starting point. Even back then, I couldn't explain the difference between money and currency. I didn't.
Right,
I hadn't figured out the concept of how data had actually been commoditized. So
right.
you can pick it up in my language. I mean, I reread it now and I'm just like, oh, that word's wrong. Shouldn't have said that. Blah blah blah. This is kind of like not quite correct. Um,
I'm not familiar with your site. Can you give
oh,
me the address? We can give it out, I guess, for the listeners too.
yeah. Do you know what? I actually tried to find it to show somebody else it the other day, and trying
Uh-huh.
to find my Medium site on a search engine is impossible. Like,
Uh,
literally, even
I'm
I
not
couldn't
surprised.
find it. It's crazy. So yeah, what I'll do is
Okay.
I'll send you the link so you
Okay,
can
great. Sounds good.
see all the articles. But yeah, in terms of getting a channel going, mate, on it would be great to listen to someone else because, like, you know what, like, I mean, because I'm actually like really busy and I do this kind of like in between, whenever I've got a spare moment or whatever, I'll put a show
Okay.
out.
Yep.
But one of the reasons even I do it is because, let's say if I haven't, what I will do is when I'm doing a show, because the adrenaline is going and
Yeah.
you don't actually get to absorb my own material while I'm actually producing it. You know, because there's so many things going on. You know, you're kind of like looking through articles, you're reading them, you're talking about them, you're watching the screen, you're controlling OBS at the same time. You know, all
Right.
these like things going on. And so what I will do is I'll normally get up in the morning and listen to my own show. And I find my own show quite entertaining. There's like knowledge.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, there's knowledge on there that I would actually be interested in,
Right.
because I created it. But like whenever I haven't done a show, I'm literally just like, holy fuck, there is nothing out there. There is
There's
nothing
nothing.
out there. It's
Zilch. There's
nuts.
not a. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can't believe it. I
Yeah.
guess I guess Craig is creating a like a university type thing with courses. I think did I hear that correctly?
But I don't know what they're doing. But I mean, in terms of the actual media presence, like I mean, I was actually
Oh, media
sort of
presence zero.
working. I was working at CoinGeek for a little bit. And
Okay.
mate, you would not believe the size of the media machine that is behind them in comparison to the amount of content they put out there, which is just shockingly crap.
Yeah.
Honestly, mate, I was just like, oh my God, I'm doing all this for free off my own back just because I'm so passionate about what is going on and the need for it. Have CoinGeek ever reached out to me? Never. Not once. Not even on the Bitcoin SV channel when we were getting 3,000 live viewers and, CoinGeek is backed by got a billionaire backer and we were absolutely smashing their ratings. They didn't even reach out to us then. Like nothing. We were just like, there's almost like this wall of silence. Like who the hell is behind CoinGeek? Like literally just, I mean, what are you doing?
That's insane.
Producing one relatively, I'd say, not very entertaining weekly live stream.
It's garbage. Honestly, it's garbage. I don't watch it anymore. I don't watch CoinGeek. Once in a while, an article pops up. I'm like, okay, this is okay. So as you said, there's so much information that needs to be digested by the
Oh
public,
yeah,
and there's
loads.
nothing. There's zero information out there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I'm thinking like this is a good time to start, you know?
Absolutely. Honestly, mate, if you put a channel together, I would be one of your first subscribers. Because I'll be like, oh, finally, somebody else,
Yeah,
putting some content out there. Great stuff. I can just have it
sounds
on in the
good.
background, or I can just sit down in a coffee. And like you, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because when I first got into it, mate, I was absolutely fanatical about trying to find out what it was I was missing. I was listening to everyone. I was listening to obviously Peter McCormack. Oh my God. I
Hmm.
was listening to Chico Crypto, and I mean just I was literally trying to absorb absolutely anything and everything because I was in a panic because I was just like, all these people seem to know what they're talking about. What is it I don't get? What am I missing? What is this thing? In fact, it was the a podcast that Ryan X Charles did with God, I can't remember his name. Steve something or other. He's written he wrote the but he's a massive Roger Ver fan.
Okay.
Steve Patterson, that's right.
Okay.
Even Steve Patterson, has gone down the line of BCH, and it's just like, oh my God, I was listening to you when I knew absolutely nothing, and even you haven't figured it out yet. Like, this is
Yeah.
just absolutely insane. And so
I don't
there's
know.
no one.
I don't understand. Like there at some point, like there's gotta be more people that know, especially in all these middles. Or maybe they know, but they're like, okay, there's no, they think it's a lost battle, and they're like, I'm not gonna get any viewers going into that. I'm gonna get attacked, So I don't know what it is, but yeah, the information is just abhorrent. There's nothing out there. Like it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
When in that kind of like situation, I mean, one of the things that actually drives me to do my show is because I know that the content that I put out is going to attract the kind of people that I want to get to know. So then you
Okay.
get people like yourself ringing in, going, "Let's do a show." I'm just like, "This is great." Let's do it.
Uh,
Somebody out there that's actually got a substantial level of intelligence. We still have a chance.
yeah, and I didn't even think about it from that perspective. And that kind of is an extra motivation for me because, after the pandemic, I think many people are in the same situation. People lost a lot of friends because
Yeah,
people went
yeah,
completely batshit crazy about,
yeah, yeah.
oh, you didn't get the vaccine. Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're like evil. I got called a plague rat. It was it's insane.
What?
Like, and now a lot of people, they refuse to even talk about it because the truth's coming out about all
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So, but uh, now I'm attracting more people that kind of see things the way I do, and
Good.
I love that you said that because it gives me more motivation to start a channel. Because yeah, I'm meeting people like you or like other people who are like-minded,
Mm,
and I'm finding some truly amazing and very intelligent people, and
brilliant.
and also people who are, they're okay that you have a different opinion, even if it's a little bit crazy in other people's eyes.
Mm.
They're willing to listen and exchange. And if we disagree, we disagree. That's fine. So yeah, extra motivation. That's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want any help, like creating a channel, I mean, because was it you that contacted me the other day and said, yeah, how'd you get your border, on my show that I created? And again, there isn't anybody, using these frames,
Right.
like I do on my one, and I was just like, well, having a frame is kind of obvious because whenever you see these people sort of trying to screen share, half the
Yeah.
screen is wasted. So I'm just like, well, you can put advertising there, or at
Right.
least kind of like decorate it, or at least kind of like give the show
Okay.
your own kind of, you can theme it,
Hmm.
if you want. So yeah, I can help you put something together. Put your own signature stamp on it. Help with content, and also, I mean, if I find any articles that are interested for me, I can always send it over to you, and like somebody else has their own opinion on it. I mean, it literally, like you said, it's literally like getting a fix. That's what I
Yeah,
need.
it is.
I need my BSV
It's
fix every day. You know.
it's exactly yeah. Yeah, no, okay, sounds good. Yeah, definitely I'll get your help is much appreciated. And yeah, I could talk about this for hours. I don't know
Yeah, yeah.
if you have any other questions you wanted to ask me relative to BSV, but yeah,
Well,
definitely.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So in terms of BSV related questions, what was your were you purely just following the tech and the protocol, or did you get either hoodwinked by any of the politics that were involved? I mean, well, let's talk about the hash war in
Yeah.
2018. I mean, that was looking back on it, that was absolutely hilarious. Because like I didn't know what to expect, nobody else knew what to expect. Roger Ver came out the gate and he's just like, oh, we put more hash rate on the network that could be generated by the Hoover Dam, and all this kind of baloney. And I was watching the hash rate as to what was going on, and sort of the BCH hash rate like went through the roof to start with, that massive spike. They were borrowing it from
Right.
others, whatever, and the sort of the BSV hash rate went up a little bit, but then the BSV hash rate went down, and I was just like, okay, well, what's going on here? And then the hash rate of BCH came right the way down. Then BSV hash rate went up, and then BCH quickly put their hash rate back up, and then the BSV hash rate went down, and then BCH put their hash rate down. And I was just like, hold on a minute, like what is going on here? And it
It's
it
almost like
looked
a mirror.
yeah, and it looked to me like it looked to me like Craig was just simply controlling the hash rate, going up and down, and obviously I know that he's Satoshi Nakamoto, so I was just like, well, Craig can burn through hash rate for decades, decades and decades,
Yeah.
and he would just simply economically starve them, and it just
Hmm.
looked like all he was doing was making them waste hash rate, because whenever he put it up, they would then put it up, and then he'd bring it down, and then he'd put it up, and then he'd bring it down, and they would just follow him because they didn't need the excess hash rate. So I was just like, all they're doing is burning through, electricity for want of a better term, and they're just wasting huge amounts of money, huge amounts
Yeah.
of funds. You're burning through all this completely worthless hash rate. So I was just like, well, this supposed hash war is more of a wet blanket than anything else.
Yeah.
And the only person who would have understood that it was a wet blanket right from the beginning is Craig. Craig
Yeah.
would have known exactly what was going to happen. And then at the end of it, Roger just simply declared victory by colluding with the exchanges and listing their alternative protocol as BCH. So I was just like, well, you didn't even need that hash war.
Yeah.
All you could have literally colluded with the exchanges before you burnt through millions of dollars worth of hash rate.
Yeah.
So
It,
what did you make of that when that was happening?
I didn't know what was going on at the time, to be honest. I just kind of knew that Craig knew more than them.
Yeah.
And I knew that BTC was kind of taken over. So
Yeah.
to me, they don't care. They have so much power. They don't care about electricity. They don't care about money. They're trying. I think it's similar to the Trump thing where they can't let Craig win because if they do, it's going to cause massive damage to their whole system. And I mean, their whole system is based on the monetary system, right? So if they lose that, they're going to lose for good. So I think maybe, thinking about it now in retrospect, maybe they didn't know. They thought they could control it through the hash, but they kind of gave that up. And I think it was maybe a way of stalling for them until they could get control of exchanges and things like that. And then once they controlled the exchanges, then that became a big obstacle for us, right? Because, and then they got the whole social engineering machine going, which they use all the time, which is losing influence as well. So, I mean, I see this as a long drawn out battle where Craig is like 5 steps ahead all the time.
Yeah.
And he kind of, I'm assuming he foresaw what would happen. Like, you don't, take down a monetary system without a battle. I mean, I'm sure he knew that. I think was it in the court documents where he said they said he was lying on the floor and he didn't want to be Satoshi and he thought about suicide. I mean, you can think about what the guy went through, but I think he's always 5 steps ahead, and he was kind of controlling things there and testing it. I'm sure he's testing his own theories as well. But I think they're just behind in the battle in knowledge, of course, because he knows his own invention. And there's a back and forth there, and they gave up. They kind of gave up. They decided to go towards the exchanges. So, to be honest, at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I was more focused on, what is Bitcoin? And to me, Bitcoin was not BTC. And it then became BCH, which they called a fork. They're like, well, that's not BTC. It got forked away. And I was like, no, that's the real Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They didn't change the protocol. That's the original.
They didn't add replay protection.
No. And then they went from BCH to BSV. And there it took me a little bit of time because I was listening to Roger Ver a lot. But eventually when I heard Craig, I'm like, no. I mean, it's Craig. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
And then it got confirmed by the court cases and all the evidence that was coming out. And everybody's telling me, well, why did he come out and say he was Satoshi Nakamoto? They would never have done that. I'm like, you guys clearly don't know what you're talking about because the only reason he came out, it was because he got leaked by the media. They're the ones who discovered it, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't want to come out. He wanted his anonymity from the beginning. So I guess at the time I didn't have that knowledge about hash, but now in retrospect, that's kind of how I see things.
Well, and also I tell you something else that I've also realized. Literally, no one knows what the protocol is. This elusive thing that everybody refers to as the protocol. I was listening to, I think it's Sonny Decree, who's like a Swiss, YouTuber. I haven't actually heard of him in a long time, but
Hmm.
one of the reasons I stopped listening to his channel is because he said the protocol is hash. And I was just like,
Oh, okay,
what?
yeah.
I was like, what did I just hear? Like, what? Yeah, you know, you're this YouTuber with hundreds of thousands of followers on Bitcoin, and you've just told me that the protocol is hash. I was like, what are you? You're talking absolute shite. Like,
Yeah,
absolute shite. And it just made you realize all these, you know, Bitcoin influencers and all that, they have no effing clue.
no,
No effing clue. You know?
yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, even CoinGeek and BSV Association don't even know what the protocol is. You know,
Hmm.
even when I try to explain it to them, they still don't get it. I'm just like, oh my god, you know, what's
Yeah, I
what's
think
your
most people
understanding
don't
of
understand it.
that? Do you have an understanding of it now? I mean, as far as I know, I'm the only individual in the entire world that has extracted the Bitcoin protocol from the white paper.
I
It's
mean, in
nuts.
my, I have my understanding of Bitcoin is it's an electronic peer-to-peer cash system, right?
Hmm.
Electronic cash and peer-to-peer. It's an immutable ledger where you have timestamps and you have signatures, so uh, which cannot be changed. And so you're creating this system, uh, which is, kind of, well, as we said, it's a nightmare for corruption, but it allows to track everything all the way back to the source, or to the start. So if you have a transaction, you can literally follow that money all the way back to the source on BSV. Of course, BTC is no
Hmm.
longer the case, right? And then you have, um, which what was intended was to have huge data, kind of centralized data areas where all the data gets stored. And really, the miners are kind of verifying that the transactions are accurate. So you have an almost perfect system of accounting, but you can also store data. So like the possibilities are endless. So people can store their data for a certain price on the on chain. They can kind of commoditize their work, and all the proof is there. So if someone comes along and says, "Hey, no, I created this." Well, no, you didn't. I created it because you can follow the signature. There's a timestamp here. This cannot be cheated. So then you have this whole like everything will be based on Bitcoin. Everything,
Huh.
the internet, money will be based on Bitcoin. Data, social media influencers, if you want to call them, they won't need to go through a third-party system. They'll just have everything. Let's say you're on Facebook and you put out some material. You can monetize likes. So if someone wants to click like, they have to give you a cent. So let's say you have 100,000 followers, you get 100,000 likes. That's $1,000 already, and with not even a thousandth of a cent.
Hmm.
So everything is going to be related. Um, you can, when you go to court, people are going to look at the transactions that happened on chain. The people who are trying to cheat, they won't be able to conceal things anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it touches everything.
We're gonna be able to find out whether warrants are authentic or not. Which ones are the fake
Exactly.
ones?
Yes, or you create a new song, put it on chain first. Put it on
Yeah, yeah.
chain. That way there's absolute proof you created it and when it was created, or at
Yep.
least when you put it out, right?
Yep.
So it's a system that's going to influence literally everything. Business, patents, money, courts, governments,
Yeah, yeah.
the medical industry. Like, look at all the
Yeah.
corruption in the medical
Yeah.
industry, right? How they
It's crazy.
screw around with research and they put out fake research.
Yeah, yeah.
You won't be able to do that anymore. And then people, it's still anonymous, so you still have your privacy, but like Craig was explaining with a court order, they can see, let's say you have a wallet, well, they can, if the court order comes out, the police can come and now verify your identity. It's not just anybody who can see who the money belongs to,
Mm.
right? But the police will come in, they'll look at your, who was this tied to? Was it tied to this IP address? Then they'll see that you're on the internet. So they'll be able to find anybody, right? So I do admit that I need to brush up on the kind of intricacies in the coding and things like that. But that's my general understanding of
Ah, well,
it.
so yeah, so this is something that you need to. So this is maybe this is do your first show on it, something like this. So
Hmm.
the protocol is actually the fundamental elements that commoditize data. That's what the protocol is.
Okay.
It's the fundamental elements that actually make the digital data a commoditized data. So, first of all, the network itself has to be commoditized in order for the token to be extracted from it that has the elements that the network is made from. That's what makes the token a commodity.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, and this is literally whenever people go to these like Bitcoin conferences or crypto conferences or whatever, you know, and they're always debating what's a security and what isn't. Is XRP a security? Is it not? Blah 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 blah. If they knew how to commoditize data, they would straight away see that every single shitcoin, all shitcoins are illegal, illegal, unregistered, economically worthless security offerings, and their security
Okay.
offerings. And the reason they're fraud is because they don't secure your entitlement to anything, because they allow you to use a centralized network, but that centralized network has got no value to you because it's centralized. So therefore, the
Right.
token that comes from it, that is centrally controlled by those who centrally control the network, has no economic value because
Right.
it
Right.
doesn't have any common value and therefore can't be used as a medium of exchange.
Well,
This
yeah,
is
they can just change it whenever they want to, right?
exactly,
There's no
yeah.
rules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There is no rules exactly. So it's the protocol that I can give you the five elements that cannot be changed. So you can scale them,
Hmm.
scale them to your heart's content. And I mean, I
Right.
actually had somebody else say this to me. They were like, "Oh, they're changing the protocol," and I was just like, "Changing the protocol? Well, what are they doing? Oh, they're scaling this and they're scaling that," and I was just like, "That's not the protocol."
Hmm.
you know
So for you, the protocol is a commodity.
So the protocol is what enables the commoditization of data.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the elements that actually create a commoditized network are one, having no central point of failure. So in other words,
Mhm.
you have to have a distributed network, and all of those components have to be economically competitive to one another. That's one of the
Mhm.
elements. So economic competition, absolutely essential, because without competition you simply get collusion and centralization. Then you
Well,
need
you get a communist system, really, or a socialist system, which it
Well, yeah,
fails.
just a
Yeah.
centrally controlled system.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be economically competitive. Absolutely essential. Then you
Absolutely.
need to create common accountability amongst the users, so that no one could do anything on the network that nobody else would know about. So, in other words, there's
Right.
common accountability, and that is created through the chain of digital signatures.
Right.
And also, what's important about the chain of digital signatures is that it transfers responsibility and accountability from the mining network onto the users of the network. Because if there was illegal or criminal unlawful activity taking place on the network and there was no other way of holding anybody accountable for it, then it's those who sustain the network that are on the hook for it.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Absolutely.
whereas what you do is you transfer accountability and responsibility onto the users by making it traceable, and that is done through
Right.
the chain of digital signatures. So
That's brilliant.
the network users are responsible for it. That's why
Yes.
the signatures are so important. And then the
Yeah.
last three are just basically to do with the dynamics. You obviously need unbounded scale so that limitations and
Yes.
restrictions can't be manufactured and the network not be manipulated by a central controlling sort of party. You then need a
Hmm.
fixed token supply that economically sustains the network so that nobody can inflate it or deflate it and therefore tamper with its value. And then
Hmm.
those elements just need to be locked so that they
Yeah.
never change. That's the protocol. That is it.
Okay. Yeah. See, I understand all those points, but you really eloquently described them. And did you write an article that summarizes this stuff? Because
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
gonna
I
I'm
even
gonna memorize it.
yeah, nice one. Yeah, I mean, I even actually wrote the article that includes the Howey test to to what constitutes a security, And then and this is what's kind of funny about XRP, desperate to prove that they're not a security. Well, if they're not a security, then what they've created is securities fraud. Because Ripple Labs created it. So therefore, if it's not a genuine security, it is fraud. So they've kind of shot themselves in the foot there.
Yeah, to me, anything that's not BSV is almost 98% fraud. Like it's just a poor, shitty copy of BSV. Like it's
BSV is the only one that has all those elements that I just mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. So which makes them fraud. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, okay. BSV is the only way you can commoditize data. It's the only commoditized digital network. You know? And the article that I wrote outlines what the Howey test is, and then I also created what I call the Toshi test to test for a digital commodity, which are these questions. Is there a common starting point? Did the network have neutral organic growth without any central point of influence? Is the network economically competitive? Is there a chain of digital signatures in place? Does the network have unbounded scale? Is there a fixed token supply? And are those elements locked? Because if not, it is fraud. If it doesn't have those elements, it's secure. It is a security, and it's securities fraud because it doesn't entitle you to anything.
Yeah, SirToshi, this is amazing. This is the article I need, amongst others, because that's one thing where I'm lacking is my kind of overall understanding of the chain. Like I understand things intuitively from everything I listen to, but I need to be able to express it in the same way you do, like that. Because all the points you've told me there, like immediately, it's kind of agrees with how I see the protocol. I don't have it kind of down pat in my mind. You know what I mean? So that's probably one of the, and that's great. That's what I came here for. More information, more resources to better my understanding. Also, because I debate with my friends who are in crypto, and this is essential. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, obviously, knowledge is power, and what I'm trying to do is get the education out. All learning in Bitcoin starts from comprehending the paradox of the centralized starting point to being able to explain SHA-256. All knowledge exists between those 2 points. So if you can comprehend those 2 points, the beginning and the end, everything else will fall into place.
Right. Oh, I have a question for you. I wanted to ask you about the Genesis block, because I think it's one of the central points to what happened in the court. In court, and I understand very little about the Genesis block, but it seemed to be kind of really important with the court cases.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you just if you wanted to speak to it generally,
Well, have you got a question on it?
So what is the Genesis block? I mean, and some people were saying, well, you can't move kind of the coins in it or something like that to that state. And then Craig was speaking to it, but I think maybe I had a lack of knowledge, so I couldn't really grasp what they were talking about.
So the Genesis block is the foundational data of the network. That's what it is. So
it has the code too, like the code and all that stuff, right?
So the again, I remember I can't remember what his name was now. I think it was Andreas something or other. Not Antonopoulos, another guy that Daniel Krowitz knows. Andreas Brecken, that's him. So Andreas Brecken was saying that it's something to do with the hex code that makes them hard coded in. But because it's the foundation of the network, the Genesis block is not created in the same way as all the other blocks. Because it's like the anchor, because there's no block header to create the block with. So therefore, it has to be hard coded in, and those the coins that are in the Genesis block cannot be spent. Although the coins are in a wallet, those Genesis block coins cannot be spent, but you can send and receive coins from the wallet that those coins are actually in.
So those, but aren't those Genesis block coins?
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
coins are in the Genesis block, and they can't ever move from that block.
Okay. Okay.
But the coins have to be in a wallet address somewhere.
Right. Right.
So that
Okay.
the wallet address you can send and receive coins from, but that block reward of those first initial bitcoins in the Genesis block, that data cannot be moved.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I mean, your knowledge is like light years ahead of mine. Um,
Well, yeah, but mate,
but
I was in your position once, and I was in an absolute
yeah.
panic, thinking that everybody knew more than me, you know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you get to a stage and you start listening back to others, and you're just like, holy shit, I was listening to you, you dickhead, you know. And now and now I know you're talking shit. God, no wonder I didn't
Yeah.
get it, you know.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I started, I knew nothing, but I quickly kind of understood things I think were really important. And I quickly saw through the fact that, most people don't know what they're talking about. They think they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
Um, and like I think I have a good general understanding, but I need to start going more into detail and into these various aspects of it. So like when you describe the protocol, how you can commoditize your data and things like that.
You can't
I
actually
really need to
you can't actually commoditize your own data. You can monetize your own data.
monetize. Sorry, that
Yeah.
was the right word. Monetize. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Monetize your own data. Um, then I need to brush up on all those areas, and I'm definitely going to.
Mm.
So, but like even like listening to the court cases, I mean, I still don't understand. Like for me, it's so obvious that it's him just through all the interactions
Yeah.
and like how okay, they came up with this COPA report, but then they asked them, okay, who wrote the report? Well, it wasn't me. It was actually, COPA that wrote that report. And it's like, man. And then
Yeah.
I think the judge, they found out he was hanging out with them various times, so there's already a conflict of interest
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I
David
mean,
Pierce, Tufty the cat. Yeah, crazy.
yeah, it's so obvious. Like to me, it's very obvious that Craig is Satoshi. BSV can scale, you know, without a boundary, and there's very low fees. And to me, one of the kind of the obvious things is like, okay, there are tens of thousands of cryptos, maybe more. I mean, BSV is not a crypto, but that's what they call it, right? That's the language they use. Um, why are you going to use this crypto over BSV, right? When BSV has lower fees, it scales infinitely. It's faster, and it's just better by miles than everything else. Why would we use the other ones? And I can never get an answer to that question.
All right, mate. I'll tell you.
And
I'll tell you the answer that they always give
yeah,
because Craig Wright's a scammer.
yeah, and that's the thing. And so immediately it's ad hominem, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm very quick to recognize when it's ad hominem. When people can't answer your questions, it means that it's done. The debate's over.
Yeah,
So
they always
I
end up
I don't
just
know how
a
many
personal
videos.
attack on the individual, don't they? Oh yeah, but
Eh,
Craig Wright's an egomaniac. So
yeah. Well,
what's that got to do
there's
with
a
anything?
subreddit called the BSV. So they even took over the BSV name in
Yeah,
the
I saw
subreddit.
it. Yeah, yeah.
And I go on there and like I was like just losing my mind. I tried to keep an open mind and I went there in the other subreddit and I keep asking questions and I never get an answer. It's always attacks and they're very funny. They're good at,
Mocking.
making him
Yeah,
yeah, mocking. It's just mocking. But I never get any answers. It's just mocking, attacking, and I mean, I don't go there anymore. It's no point. There's no information there. It's a clown show. So yeah,
yeah.
it's very easy for me to see that it's Craig just through that. But the court case was really telling, um, and it's very frustrating to speak to people. Like I have a friend who got into crypto before me. He went up to something like 150,000 euros, which was through leverage and stuff like that,
Mm.
and then he lost it all.
Oh,
And now he just does trading now, thinking he got lucky on one trade, thinking he's gonna make more money. And I'm trying to tell them, like, listen, you're they know the market better than you. They even
Yeah.
control it.
Yeah.
You're the type of person they make money off of,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They create shorts, or they take down the shorts of other people, and they're constantly draining the average citizen like
Yep.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I struggle, and I try to use logic, but oh yeah, I didn't really look at the court case at all. They're totally oblivious, and they don't even want to look into it. It's like, to them, it's a scam, because they've been bombarded with it's a scam over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's frustrating, you know.
Well, yeah, well, the only thing
Ah,
is that those very people, unfortunately, are also the ones that will believe something is safe and effective.
yeah, yeah, no, it's the same people, 100%. It's frustrating, because I'm trying to help people, and I'm trying to also convince more people to come to the protocol, and it's always the same issue.
Yeah, yeah,
So hopefully, if I create a channel, uh, I'll make a tiny little dent from my
yeah.
own perspective, and if everybody helps, in the long run, we make a difference, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, just
Yeah,
I would encourage anyone and everyone to just give it a go. Because like I
yeah,
said, I'm sort of like a lone voice in the wilderness. And they,
you
they
are.
could they could take my channel down, anytime they want. And what's left? Yeah, there's nothing there. There's
Nothing, zero.
nothing there. You know?
It blows my mind, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you want to write to CoinGeek and say, look, I don't know if you know this, but you are backed by a billionaire, and there's one guy out here on his own, putting out, at least 7 times, more content than you're putting out, explaining it in a way that you're not and that nobody else
Yeah.
is.
It's also
How
seven
about
times better. Seven
exactly?
times
Yeah, how
better
about giving?
information.
How about showing him a little bit of support?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's
I agree.
nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, we're on the same page with the frustration there. It's but you know what? I really do think, though, I do think BSV is going to explode. And I think that you're the only person there. So your it's gonna explode
Yeah,
eventually.
but
So
it's
I really hope you
vulnerable.
keep at it.
Well, mate, I
Yeah.
will, but I mean, they took 2 of my channels down in 2 days, and I just literally had to.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I was like reporting on the SegWit fraud and all that,
Yeah.
and so literally the third time I did it, I purposely got a channel up and running within 24 hours just to say to them, look, you can take my channels down anytime you want. I will just start another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, that's great. You're a lone voice in this ocean of like information.
Yeah, an ocean of
It's
shit. In an ocean of shit
yeah,
coins.
ocean of shit coins. There's so many shit. The other day I was looking at it, and there was some shit coin. Because you see the names, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
something called like a hamster battle or something like that.
Oh god.
Come on. And I saw it went up 100% in price. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the level of shitcoinish stuff we have now. It's unbelievable. Everybody, it's like crabs. Everybody's creating a shitcoin. Anybody can catch it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and then you've got
Oh
like
my God.
and then you've got coins like meme, like literally a coin
Yeah,
called meme coin that everyone
yeah,
goes crazy for, and then like
yeah.
Pepe coin and all this, and then you've got
Pepcoin, yeah.
Elon Musk saying, "Oh, wouldn't it be really funny if a coin that started out as being a joke actually became the money that the world used in Dogecoin and all this?" And I was just like, "Oh my God!" So even Elon Musk doesn't actually comprehend what Bitcoin is.
No,
Because he's talking about Dogecoin. It's like, oh my goodness me. But like Craig said, utility is what will win out at the end of the day.
yes,
You can speculate till the cows come home, but utility is undeniable. You cannot say that just that network didn't do 1 million transactions per second. Well, actually, yeah, it did, because they're all on chain. You
yes,
can't
yeah.
deny it.
Yeah, it's like the tech bubble, right? You had all these kind of companies that did nothing. They just put out a name, opened the
Yeah,
structure,
yeah,
and the speculation that was happening at those times meant that you could I mean, we saw all the different movies, right? They're 90% of those companies were shit, and then eventually they will crash. It's just that they have so much power behind the shit coins and the tether and all these tools that they have to pump. Uh, I really think we need tether to die. We need the dollar to take a hit before, a lot of this gets washed out, because we need a lot of these coins to die. We need kind of this tech bubble thing where you have this huge crash and kind of a lot of them get wiped out before, people realize that, BSV. I mean, look what this one does. This has all the utility,
Well,
right?
it'll be
It's
interesting to see how the cabal play it.
Mhm.
Because I mean, at the moment, those shitcoins serve no other purpose other than to distract people away from Bitcoin, which is BSV.
Yes,
That is it. So
that's it.
what will crash these coins is the value flooding into BSV, because the value's got nowhere else to go. Literally, it's
Yeah.
got nowhere else to go. The value of Tether is already there, and that can't go anywhere. It can't
Hmm.
go anywhere other than into BSV. So I don't quite know what the cabal are gonna do. I mean, their fingers. What they're trying to do by trying to encourage Craig to move a coin. Is to basically shirk responsibility, because if ever Craig did move a coin, they were and the market flipped, they could point fingers at Craig. Oh, he did this, and that's what triggered that. Blah 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 blah. So all these criminals that have got billions of dollars tied up in the network are going to be after him. That's why
Yeah.
Craig's just like, nah, no. He would be crazy to move any of
Yeah.
those coins
No,
at
no,
all.
it's
You know?
irresponsible even.
Yeah, it'd be
What do you think?
nuts.
Why do you think they didn't kill him yet? Like, that's another question I have, is like, how come they didn't get rid of this guy? Like,
Two
I,
reasons. One, I don't think they want to make a martyr out of him, because
okay.
literally, if someone dies, that's when all the that's when all the worms come out of the woodwork. And because people then
Mhm.
start looking into his history, they want to learn about him, and then people are just like, oh my god, he's created this technology that scales unboundedly. What's
Yeah.
Terranode? Oh my god, they might
Mhm.
have killed Satoshi Nakamoto. The deep state
Mhm.
did it. So one, I don't think they want to create or make a martyr out of him, because
Mhm.
that could risk blowing their cover, and there's nobody else to blame other than Blockstream for effing up Bitcoin. Um,
Right.
and then secondly, I suspect that Craig might well have arranged a kill switch. If they take him
Okay.
out, I suspect the Tulip Trust or whatever will just flip the market.
Yeah. There's then you have the conspiracy theory, which is funny. I always add that because it's kind of interesting. It's fun. That some people say, well, he has a military background. Was it his uncle or something like that who was in the
Oh
military,
yeah,
or his grandfather or something?
yeah.
Can't remember exactly.
He was the
Yeah,
professor
there
at
he is.
Exeter University. He was worked at Bletchley Park on breaking the Enigma machine.
Right, right, right. So he has a military background. So
David
there's this
Reese, that
theory
was
that, like,
Professor David
David
Reese.
Reese.
Yeah, because
That's it. I think
because
so.
Craig always credits. Yeah, I think it was maybe his grandfather's brother or something like.
Grandfather. Yeah,
Yeah, something
yeah.
like that. So it
Like
was
an uncle.
so
Second uncle.
because there was Professor David Reese, and then there was David Kleiman, who was his best friend, who obviously created the tulips just for him, and then
Hmm.
Craig himself. So Craig always says that David Kleiman and David Reese were the two biggest, most influential, you know, people in his life when he was
Hmm.
creating Bitcoin.
Right, right. Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's the theory that he has kind of military ties, and they're protecting him too, right? That they kind of know that this is part of the battle, and they he has certain ties. But that's just kind of out there. One of the funny theories. Um, Maybe, who knows? Maybe will turn out to be true. But obviously, like, he has a lot of information. I'm sure he has a kill switch. I mean, McAfee, right? They didn't stop them from getting rid of him.
Well, I
Um,
think I think even McAfee had a kill switch. That's
yeah.
that's why they blew up the Champlain Towers. because that's
Yeah.
where his apartment was. So they were just like, well, if there is a kill switch, it's gonna be in
Hmm.
there. So they effing blew them up. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally effing blew them up in the same way they brought down the Twin Towers. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
jeepers.
That's crazy. There was another tower. There was a related to that where they said there was another kill switch. Was it in Jacksonville or I can't remember. Some buildings blew up at some point in the
Yeah.
U.S. and they said that that was probably another kill switch in there. So
Whoa.
yeah, I mean it's crazy the lengths at which they'll go to kind of stop something, right? They'll blow up entire buildings.
Yeah. Just
It's like crazy.
kill hundreds of innocent people. You know.
Yeah, like no problem. Like it's not even second guessing it, you know. So yeah, the going forward. This is getting more and more intriguing, more and more interesting. And there's court cases coming up where like Craig's like, okay, you know what? I'm not Satoshi, but I'm still gonna sue you on the basis that BTC is not Bitcoin,
Yeah. Yeah.
and BSV is. So let's go that route, right? So I can't wait for that. I mean, I'm waiting for that though. That court, the whole trial and everything. It's like, as you said, it's a fix. It's so interesting.
Mm.
Everything that's going on, you just can't stop. I'm like glued to my phone all the time.
Yeah. I get criticized for being the same. All you do is screen
Oh, my
stare, you
wife.
know?
Yeah, my wife is pretty upset sometimes. It's like, okay, get off your phone now. This is ridiculous.
It's like she's
And he's
jealous.
like, yeah, I think she's jealous. You know, she's like, who's that guy? You've
Yeah.
been listening to this guy. Who's this guy with a British accent? I'm like, oh, hey, that's SirToshi. He's a legend.
Yeah, yeah. I've my girlfriend saying, "Are you sure you're not in love with Craig?" I'm like, all you do is like listen to Craig. Rah, rah, rah."
Oh,
I'm
that's
like, you know
hilarious.
what? Craig doesn't moan at me.
Yeah, exactly. He's not constantly making all these little comments
Yeah,
that are getting on
exactly.
my nerves. Oh man, that's
Uh,
hilarious. She's feeling better, by the way.
yeah. She's feeling a lot better.
Great,
You know, I think it was just,
great.
women's,
Okay,
cycles.
yeah, right. Totally normal. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a rough year of going around a lot of even for me, same thing. My wife was having some kind of health issues, and then I had like this uh, two bulging discs in my back, and it was like, it's very hard to deal with
Jeepers.
when you have health problems. So hopefully, everything goes well for you
Yeah.
in the long run.
I'm actually health is another thing that I'm getting into. You know, health, the legal
Right,
system, and blah 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 blah.
right,
Mate,
right.
they are poisoning the food we're eating, literally.
It's gross.
Yeah, so
It's
that's why
gross.
people are developing such a health problem. They're poisoning the food and they're poisoning the water, even the bottled water. If you see people,
Fluoride.
well, not even that. It's graphene oxide. Yeah, I mean when you see
Yeah,
people
there's that
putting
too.
these what do they call them? These distillers in them. You know, and like literally
Hmm.
after like 10 minutes, the water like turns black. It's just like, oh my god.
It's disgusting.
You know.
Yeah, the fluoride thing is so funny because I was telling about a friend about this years more, probably something like 15 years ago, and he was like, "Oh, there's conspiracy theories." And sure enough, now like JFK is talking about removing fluoride from the
Yeah,
water,
exactly.
and he's gonna shut down entire FDA departments.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm really hopeful for all that stuff. I could give you an example. I live in North America, and I was visiting family in France, and the food in France is much better quality. I'm sure they have other ways of poisoning and stuff too, but I got there and I lost 10 pounds immediately, although I was
Wow.
stuffing my face with like croissants and cheese
Yeah,
and
yeah,
baguette
yeah.
and stuff. And my dog as well. We took my dog to Europe or to France rather, and my dog has stomach issues here a lot. But we bought the exact same dog food over
No
there,
way.
and zero stomach issues. Like
Wow.
yeah, so the food, the water's poisoned to extreme levels.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, you had the the COVID stuff,
Mm.
the shots or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
all that stuff. And the more you dig into that, then you start to see what the hospitals are doing with the protocols that
Oh
are killing
yeah,
people. You have
jeepers.
all the remdesivir, and
Yeah,
then how
yeah,
they
yeah,
silenced, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and you go down those rabbit holes, and you see like even the cancer industry,
yeah,
and it's ridiculous. They find ways to keep you sick over a long amount of time, so that can send you all these medications that
yeah,
give you other issues.
yeah, yeah,
It's never ending. So
yeah.
it's
And on that note, it's probably a good time to wrap it up before we give
yeah,
YouTube an excuse to
sure.
ban my channel again.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, maybe just cut that last part out.
No, no, mate. I'm just gonna roll it. You know, they can
Okay.
take. You know, if they want to, they can do their worst, mate. I'm expecting it anyway. I'll just start another one.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say super appreciative talking to you. Amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Whenever
Cheers,
you
mate.
want me, send me a message. And yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, if you can send me the link to
Yeah,
your
yeah.
articles, because I'm gonna start studying that stuff.
All right, mate. Well, it's been awesome. Yeah, we've actually been going for 1 hour 55 minutes.
No
Epic.
way!
Yeah,
That's
mate.
epic.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's sort of, I whenever I'm sort of like looking at podcasts and stuff, you know, I look at the time and I think, have I really got an hour or 2 hours to listen to this? But it's been great chatting. You know, we will see how many views we get. You know,
Okay.
when I put it out there, and then yeah, what I'll do is I'll send you the link to these Medium articles, and then you know, later on sometime, if you want help setting up a channel, you know, I'll help you do that.
Okay, amazing. Really appreciate it.
That's all right, mate. Right, Alex, it's been great, and I'll catch you later.
Catch you later.
All right, mate. Have a good one. See you, mate.
You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
There we go. What an epic conversation that was. That was absolutely fantastic. Right, there we go. So we'll just leave it just before it reaches the 2 hour mark. So as ever, hope you enjoyed it, and be aware, take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.